So this video is a short description of what my first 30 days, 90 days, and beyond might look like as the supervisor of backcountry operations. So in general, I keep a short list of priorities to help guide my time and decisions that I've had for a few years. And so I'm going to use that to describe my first 30, 90, and beyond as the backcountry operations supervisor. So the first priority is always safety and compliance. If you're not doing something safe, you shouldn't be doing it. And if you're not compliant, then you can't do it. So that would be a priority coming in. For example, so just doing a quick check of the ACA and the NCAP standards. Are we meeting the new standards for like our program, like PS 206, which is the cope and climbing, or the staff qualifications for firearms. There's new training with regards to like the mesh and mental health. So just doing a quick check to make sure that we're planning ahead for our safety and compliance needs. NCS certifications, I have the current admin certification, TREC certification, and I think my cope and climbing director cert is still active. But do we need to go out and get any certifications? Because we'll need to get that on the calendar soon. State and federal compliance. So have we scheduled our mine inspectors? Have we scheduled our outside professional to come in and inspect our cope and climbing courses? Are we going to have serve safe for our chuck wagon dinner camps? Those sorts of things you have to get on the calendar early, because sometimes it can take a long, especially that cope and climbing, getting them scheduled early is really important. So safety and compliance, first 30 days. My second priority is always to my direct manager, my direct reports. So addressing any needs that they have. I'm sure if when I start, there's already been discussions and activity and objectives that are in place, tasks that have done or need getting done soon. And then your direct reports are the ones that multiply your effectiveness. So getting them on board early, establishing that rapport. Luckily, I do have a good working relationship and history with a couple of the backcountry managers. From what I've heard, it sounds like we have a really strong team this year, and that's going to come in really critical for us. The third priority is to your customers and your donors. These are the people that fund your operation, so you need to make sure and do right by them. So internal customers would be like your colleagues and staff. So establishing a quick rapport and understanding processes and how they relate to your job, what they need from you, what you need from them. So coming in the first 30 days and doing that. Your external customers. So for the backcountry operations manager, in regards to the summer ahead, your external customers would be our participants this summer. And how that relates to your area of responsibility would be the itineraries. So, reviewing the itineraries quick. If there's any updates that need to get done and communicated to the customers, you want to do that soon so they have enough time to plan and prepare. And then they're not calling your administrative staff and taking up their time to ask questions, or if they ID these potential issues. Also using the itinerary to identify your pinch points. By now we know our crew loads at the camps. And so getting early start to see those potential customer service failures and pinch points and where you need to increase your capacity. We should be able to do that by now, no problem. And so that's a customer service thing that we should get at least aware of in the next 30 days. And then finally, donors, if establishing an initial rapport with any long-term donors, just a quick call to say, hey, I'm the new guy, let's meet each other. And then if there are any active donors that we need to get in place for the summer, like our firearm camps and those supply needs, I think those are a lot of donations that happen. And so making sure that they're in place is really important. Okay, so the fourth priority that I have is always to seasonal staff and volunteers and your vendors. So these are your support personnel. And a lot of times I jump on the staff early, but in the next 30 days, it's important that, first of all, are we 100% hired yet? And is there any reason why we're not? If there's applications out there, let's get those processed really quickly and get the rest of our team on board. And then communicating and establishing rapport with our camp directors. So giving them a quick call, giving them the update, getting to know them in the next 30 days. Your volunteers. So volunteers are critical in the summer for your trainers. And so giving them a quick call. Have we lined up our trainers yet this summer? You got to do that early, because these volunteers, and sometimes, you know, they get paid a little bit sometimes, but they're basically, you're paying them for a stipend for their transportation. But if you haven't called them yet and gotten them on board, they need plenty of time so that they can plan for the summer. So that would be the fourth priority. Checking in with the volunteer geologists, the cope and climbing team, the people that we might need pre-summer, and we'll want to get that relationship started soon so that we can carry it forward for the duration of employment. And then your vendors, just if we have any long-standing vendors, giving them a quick call, whoever our rep is, giving them updated contact information, and establishing that rapport. The fifth priority that I have is your physical and digital program supply resources. So we know our crew loads. We should definitely have been able to at least get a sense for what our program supply needs are going to be. And a lot of that you have to jump on early, especially in the camping world, because as the summer approaches, those vendors get backlogged. And so if we need to have major supply orders, let's get those in place now, because if you do it early, you can check different products, you can get feedback from staff, you can look for discounts, and then you can spend more time getting what you need instead of a last minute deal where you're more likely to make a mistake. Like there was one summer that we needed our oxygen meters for the mine staff, and it was a last minute order by the backcountry warehouse, and they ordered hydrogen sulfide meters. And so the meters came, and we couldn't run the mine tours for a couple days into the season because we had the wrong product that got ordered last minute. So vendors, physical, digital programs. So, and then a quick just double check of our digital resources, just to update me. I feel pretty confident and comfortable in my previous area of responsibility, but now I'll be adding a whole different half of the backcountry. And so just doing a quick check of our digital resources in place, and a quick read just so I understand and kind of identify any needs early that I need to prepare for the summer. So that's kind of what the next 30 days would look like. Now, after that, the next 90 days, in 90 days should be about the time that our NCAP assessment is, to put it all in perspective. And so between 30 days and 90 days, you're going to continue the safety and compliance efforts. So the first 30 days, you identify and maybe try to schedule some of that stuff. And then in the first 90 days, you know, if I need to go take an NCS course or a NRA course, or get our staff to do that, that's completed in the next 90 days. And then, yeah, completing the mine inspection, things like that, the COPE course inspection. Personnel. So in the next 90 days, we'll want to follow up with any personnel that have delinquent paperwork. Have they returned their letters of employment yet? Do we have any red flags or flight risks? You know, sort of the ad drop season in your seasonal personnel. They got the internship, and so you got to replace a camp director, things like that. Next 90 days, just record keeping and documentation during training to ensure that you're grabbing the updated records to put in your standards folder so that they're there in place when NCAP arrives, like your climbing certifications for your climbing staff. And then just preparing for your NCAP, training the staff in safety procedures, emergency procedures, but then also documenting, you know, safety incidents, the Risk Connect, whoever's entering in the data into the Risk Connect, understanding that process as well. Next 90 days in regards to managers and direct supports. So as the summer approaches, you need to make sure your direct reports have the things they need to start the summer and for the rest of the summer. So their vehicles, their keys, their radios, things like that. And then your manager has their priorities as the summer approaches. And so making sure to get them in a timely fashion, the things they need to complete their priorities. Number three, customers and donors. So pre-summer is when you need to plan for the fall, for the end of the summer going into the fall. I don't know how many times I've started an email in May, and because it's a fall or a second season deal, it falls to the bottom of your priority list as your daily needs arise throughout the summer. And I've started emails in May that I don't pick up again until the end of August. And so taking care of all your second season planning, your marketing strategy for the fall, because if you wait till the fall to do that, it's too late. So doing that pre-summer in the next 90 days. Internal customers, so just continuing to understand what other departments need from me as the summer approaches, and then what I need from them, and getting that to them well in advance so that they're not doing a job for me last minute when I could have notified them weeks ahead of time. For example, getting the scatter schedule out to the people that we need help with, they need to be able to plan that well ahead of time. So that would be the next 90 days. Donors, if we just have active donor prospects, reaching out and inviting them to come visit during the summer. Anytime that you can bring a donor to actively witness the magic in action, that's where you're going to get into their pocketbook. So you want to make sure and cultivate that relationship, invite them to come visit during the summer for the sell and the ask. Then summer customer care, just the first week of participants is, they help us find all the mistakes we've made in our itineraries. And so addressing any itinerary needs quickly, our staff, which is they are first responders in the field for our participants and customer care, things like that. So as the summer starts and people get comfortable in their roles, and you identify fixes that you need to jump on quick early so that you don't have this propagating problem throughout the rest of the season. Now, in the first 90 days in regards to seasonal staff, volunteers, vendors, so just continuing to provide quality training for seasonal staff, and then getting evaluations of your training so that you can improve it in the future. Once again, just coming back to the pre-summer staff check-ins, following up with paperwork and the flight risks and things like that. And then the successful summer scatter. So training on base and then the scatter. I mean, these are all sort of your first impressions that the seasonal staff have of the operation and you as a professional. And so the more that you can portray what you want them to model out in the field is important. So just having a smooth rollout to the summer, I think just will help them feel more confident and give them a model of how they need to continue the summer from there. And then volunteers. So yeah, bringing in your trainers, but then also ensuring that you have their rooms booked into PTC, their vehicle needs, all that stuff ahead of time so that they have a great training session. And then making sure that you recognize your trainers. It's hard to do because when they finish training, you're really busy. But if you take a moment just to recognize your trainers at the end of training in the first 90 days, then they will stay loyal to you in the long run. Number 5, so first 90 days in regards to physical and digital program resources. Just continuing to ensure that our program supply needs have been ordered. They're coming in, they're putting in place and anticipating any sort of needs at the end of the summer and trying to do that early, just to get a sense for what that might look like. But in general, the earlier the timeline that you move on this stuff, the better you are in the long run. But as the summer approaches, there's always odds and ends that you forget about. And so making sure that that's done. Capturing and documenting the beginning of the summer process. This is really hard because the best time to prepare for the next year is in the moment of that year. And so taking photos, one thing I didn't get done in my last role was I really wanted to add more photos and videos to our digital program and camp resources for succession planning. But then also 12 months down the road, you try to remember, it's like, what did I do again? Or I remember I had an issue with this. And so being able to take photos and videos and then file those in your digital program resources is really critical for the next year. So planning for the next year. So that would be a priority in the first 90 days. And then finally, just, continuing with the scatter details. There's a lot going on there, setting up the yurts, making sure all that's prepped. So after the first 30 days and the initial stuff, then in the next 90 days is when you really get into the details and prep everything, and then hopefully have a smooth rollout, get that feedback for the next year, and then carry on the summer from there. So hopefully by NCAP, that's my first finish line, is the more I prepare and put in the extra effort leading up to NCAP, the more your staff are trained and ready to take the football from there, and everything's in place. And then finally, just one more priority is right before the summer, it's important to, if it can only be a day or two, just taking a moment to disconnect and then transition into the summer. So disconnect and leave all the fall, winter, spring behind, relaxed for a moment, get excited for the summer ahead, and then come in refresh for the summer. So whether that's just a couple days or maybe I need to go to Maine and clear out my storage unit, and that would be a great quick pre-summer sort of decompression happening. So that's a brief rundown of what the first 90 days might look like. Now let's talk about some of the beyond stuff. So this is after NCAP, so finishing out the summer and then the next 12 months. So first of all, planning for the future, there's sort of, I feel like there's sort of 4 things that I look at. And that's always identifying safety improvement opportunities. Driving around the back, you see a rake upside down and it's the wrong way. And so just keeping an eye and observation skills for safety improvement opportunities. Growth opportunities, getting out there and watching program in action and seeing what's being used, what's not being used, what your customers like, what they're not super into, looking at their eval forms daily. Cost reduction opportunities. Are we spending a lot of money on things that we don't need to? Better utilization of our facilities, which are depreciating over time. So are there buildings out there that aren't getting used or getting overused? Succession planning and brand identity. So that succession planning is so critical to having a strong brand. And so making sure that everything fits into the Philmont brand that we are trying to portray, and then trying to keep that consistent over time through succession planning. But yeah, throughout the summer, just observing, talking to staff, monitoring staff, evaluation of staff, trying to identify who your future leaders are so you can start cultivating that retention. Anytime that you can ask a staff in season for their feedback, they feel ownership and they feel like they're really being listened to. And then in return, you get this loyalty and enthusiasm. And so connecting with staff like that, documenting near misses, incidents, reviewing those so you can try to see patterns and things like that. Listening to ideas, being able to hear a good idea that's might have a high return on investment, or if it's a super enthusiastic idea, but maybe it wouldn't work out. Also educating people, because if they're offering you these ideas, it means that they want to contribute. And so if you can guide that, it'll just be better for you in the long run. And then recognizing accomplishments. So if you have staff that go above those evals from crews, if they name a staff member by name, there's no greater reward to a staff member than taking that comment directly to the staff member in the backcountry and sharing that with them and their team and their boss. And so that means a lot more to them than a paycheck. And so recognizing your team when appropriate. Continuing to build relationships. So with your staff and looking for opportunities, but also your volunteers, your potential volunteers. If you happen to just chat with a crew and they say, hey, I'm a professional firearms instructor. Well, keep that in your mind, write it in your notebook, and maybe reach out to them later if that's what you need. But building those relationships and looking for opportunity, community relations, how many millionaires hike through our property every summer is something that I always keep in mind. A previous manager always used to ask staff, what do your parents do? And so trying to identify those opportunities and then cultivate the relationships from there. And then, of course, jumping in on maintenance needs early in the season, and then prioritizing those early so you can get a head start on those right at the end of the summer. It's really hard at the end of the summer to capture all that stuff and process it and prep it for the off season in the next summer, but that's the most critical time to do it. And so it's the hardest thing to do, but putting in the extra effort in that end of August is really important for the remainder of the next 12 months. All right, so a couple of examples of things that the first summer, I wouldn't change anything the first summer. We're too close to the summer to make any changes. Let's just have a smooth transition in the full-time employee, and then carry out the summer with our experienced staff, like normal. But things that I'll look at this summer closely that I had observed previously are things like the backcountry warehouse. I felt like there's some safety potentials for safety issues in the backcountry warehouse, and some other opportunities for improvement, streamlining, and some duplication of staff efforts and materials. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity with our backcountry warehouse operations, but primarily, this is just an example, but the safety concerns are, we're bringing a lot of vehicles in and out of that place every single day, every morning, and then every evening. And it just feels like you're setting up a chance for a vehicle, either a vehicle on vehicle or a vehicle on a building or a vehicle on a person. But a high traffic area, you got participants walking through there, you got staff through there. You're driving the vehicles into base camp, into a largely a non-vehicle zone. And so that's something that really caught my eye. Other things, I mean, you have backcountry warehouse staff using power tools, a carpenter using a saw. You're lifting crates up and down. When I was there, we used to have these big wooden boxes. And the backcountry warehouse manager told me once that, oh yeah, you know, I was lifting the box once and the whole lift fell over. And in my head, I saw that could have been a life or death catastrophic situation. And so one thing I did do is we switched to the wire crates, which are designed for this, you know, stacking and things like that. But yeah, just the backcountry operations have some safety improvement opportunities there. But then also just looking at the whole operation, not just backcountry, not just the camping team, but the whole operation and how we might be able to streamline things. I mean, a lot of the backcountry processes are duplicated in the commissary. I mean, ordering supplies, storing supplies, inventory. I mean, it's a lot of duplication there. And so looking at, you know, here's one idea that I just thought of is in the fall, as you take down the tents and you pull all the foamies out of the tents in the camping side, you take those all the way to the canvas and repair building. Well, okay, theoretically, you move the backcountry inventory and warehouse in the off season. Just move all that stuff to the commissary, and maybe in the summer, just go ahead and operate out of the commissary, and move those foamies from the CHQ side and put those in the backcountry warehouse in the off season. That way, you're not having to transport those nearly as far. You're saving employee time and vehicles and all that. And then they're right there in the unheated building in the off season. And then in season, you pull those foamies out, put them back out, and now you have a big open space. I know in busy summers and peak season, the commissary is just overwhelmed, especially like the tent drying racks. You have crews trying to stack on top of each other in there. Anyway, anytime you clear out a space, you provide a growth opportunity. And so if we're able to clear out the space in the backcountry warehouse in the summer, I think that we can consider this upcoming summer, how that might have a return on investment or pros and cons, but explore that space a little bit, just because I think there is opportunity there. So that's one thing I'm going to be looking at. And two, just, you know, on a side, just the backcountry warehouse process for if people want vehicles into the backcountry, they sit on the back porch for an hour or two until you're done with your morning meeting. And you know, it just seems like it can become a hangout place and sort of I think it's a visual thing, and you're not necessarily serving your staff as best you could. So yeah, opportunity there. Oh yeah, and then customer satisfaction. So during services, sometimes you got to bring a vehicle to the backcountry warehouse, and so you either have to wait till after services, and now you're delaying your backcountry managers that have been in the field all day long, or they got to come in the back way, or you're driving through and now you're interfering with the services, and that really needs to be respected, and a solemn time for that spiritual place to take place for the participants. That's really critical to our brand. And so just various opportunities there that I'm going to be taking a closer look at for the backcountry warehouse operations. And then coming back to vehicles, just in general, I'll be observing vehicle and driver practices in the backcountry. I mean, it's unavoidable to some extent, the amount of vehicles and drivers in the backcountry, but I think we should take a look at that and consider opportunities for reducing that. And I think they're there. You know, for example, if you're running the backcountry operation, the daily inventory and things, if their backcountry managers are going through the commissary to pick up those supplies and bring them to the backcountry, well, just trade their BCM truck for a commissary truck, and now maybe they make a commissary delivery to a camp. You know, sometimes you have like a one-off commissary delivery. Well, if you let a backcountry manager drive a commissary truck instead of their normal truck, you can reduce one drive, you can reduce your employees. So looking at the drives you're making, are they essential? Are they not essential, but is the return worth it? And so taking a close look at that and seeing how we can, because every time you get in a vehicle, that's a risk. That's the most dangerous thing we do is drive. And so anytime you can reduce the drives, you're reducing the risk, but you're also reducing cost and things like that. And a lot of times later in the summer, you lose vehicles throughout the summer. And so your vehicles are very tight in the end of the summer. So I'll be looking at that. And then yeah, in the off season, just continuing to look at our backcountry supplies. And that was something in my area of responsibility that I did in my previous employment. I really went in a detailed, and I pulled out all the items that were not useful to us anymore. And so for like climbing, we had all this gear that was either needed to be retired, and so that's a risk when you're having retired gear in your storage. And so there's a process for retiring gear and cutting it up. So does it need to be retired or thrown away? Can you donate it? If you don't, we had a bunch of the wrong size fish hooks for our fly fishing program. I mean, these huge fish hooks. Well, maybe there's opportunity. We can donate that to maybe our fishing angler trainer. And so now you bring in a trainer. They're really grateful, and in recognition, you give them all this stuff that's just taking up room in the backcountry warehouse, and they're appreciative. They can use that for meaningful purposes elsewhere, and then you're not holding on to inventory for decades, just taking up space. And once again, you clear space, and it creates a growth opportunity in the future. And so taking a closer look at that, it wouldn't surprise me when I was there. I had identified a artificial climbing wall in a Connex box out by the firefighter practice area, taking up a whole Connex box, an artificial wall worth tens of thousands of dollars, but it's only valuable if you use it. And so we had made plans with our Cope and Climbing Volunteer Committee to put that into place at Dan Beard as a Cope element. And so it wouldn't surprise me, though, if that wall is still in that Connex box, not being used. And now it's been well over a decade, probably 2 decades since it was donated. So let's go ahead and designate it for use. Maybe not immediately, but in the future, let's designate it and give it a timeline. Let's donate it, or let's throw it in a dumpster and clear up the space for something else, because that Connex box is very valuable as well. So that's just another example of things that are off-season projects. Growth opportunities. So other growth opportunities that I thought of, and I think there's a whole long list here, and we could spend just a couple of hours brainstorming some really quality growth opportunities to look at it in the off season. So one thing I'd want to do as we move forward, a lot of our programs are being overused. The staff is getting burned out. We're having to put a lot of money into extra staff and program supplies. And really, when you look at the customer experience, it's important to promise and deliver and provide that program. That's what they expect, and that helps change lives. But the at the foundation level of Philmont and making that participant changing their life comes back to the ranger, the interaction between that crew and the ranger and the crew and the staff. And then if you can instill in those participants the purpose and the mission of Philmont, you realize that it has just as much to do with the trail camps as it does the staff camps. And so I want to use more of our trail camps, reduce the loads on our staff camps, hopefully have some cost reduction there, but not reduce our customer experience, but being able to provide meaningful program to those crews in the trail camps that's self-facilitated. And how I would do this is I would engage the ranger team to develop a Philmont participant guide for trail camp programming, something like that. So just programs that they can self-facilitate in the campsites. We already have some in place. We have the chaplain's aids and the daily reflection. But one example that I gave is at Northern Tier with the OA program. I challenged them to take on their last day, have some time of solitude to reflect on their experience and write a letter to their local lodge, describing who they were before they arrived, what their experience was like, and how they want that to improve when they get home, their future. And so maybe that's one example that you include in this guide, but it's a great opportunity for rangers to get creative, and then for participants to have meaningful program self-facilitated at the trail camps, because the trail camps can really make an impact when they're out there, not at the staff camps. Okay, that's one growth opportunity. And then, yeah, just continuing to explore these secondary programs. So there are some great side programs, you know, the sunset hikes, or, you know, one time at Head of Dean, we did yoga. And a lot of these secondary programs are like you're piloting future big programs. And so maintaining your primary brand identity programs at your staff camps, but then exploring these secondary program opportunities and understanding the important role that they play. And I always come back to the climbing camps. When it's raining and you can't offer climbing, or when you because of our itineraries, you have a customer service failure and you cannot shoot you can't shoot your crews. You can't shoot your crews. You cannot provide firearms programming to your crew loads because you accidentally booked too many crews on that camp. And that's on our end. But if you can provide some meaningful program, at least you can hopefully, you know, I guess mitigate a customer service failure that way. But exploring the second season programs, and two, a lot of these are low hanging fruit, low cost, and because of this exploration, when I was there, we explored the bouldering program, and that turns into a huge cost savings and customer service win at Chase Cal. So bouldering is a great example of exploring one of these second season ideas. And then in the off season, that's how you engage your staff. And if you can engage them in the off season, they will continue to be loyal. You get more returning staff year to year. You'll develop your leadership in the off season, and you're never requiring people to work in the off season because that's illegal. But a lot of times they are enthusiastic and they want to do this. And so exploring the second season programs is one way that we can look at growth in the off season. Yeah, and just engaging in the volunteers. You know, there's some Facebook groups out there that you get these people, you see them posting all the time. I think his name is like Dennis, and he always posts these great like map analysis and logistics and things like that. Let's go ahead and engage those people that we see on the Facebook groups, because clearly they are like drinking the Kool-Aid of Philmont. How can we use them to help us? And the more that they take work off our plate, then we can grow the operation from there. If you're bogged down in the annual things that we have to do, it's hard to work towards growth things from there. So engaging those volunteers that way. Post-summer, just in general, in a lot of key areas of the responsibility for this position, I want to move the timeline up a lot for some key areas. So one is staff hiring. That's my biggest thing. The earlier you get them on board, the less they're going to look for other jobs. They're going to tell their friends. They're going to get their paperwork done. They're going to provide you these ideas. So every day when those applications come in, you need to give them an initial 24 to 48 hour email or phone call. And then within a couple of weeks, you should have that interview done and get them on board. You know, a good staff member, you know, everybody that I hire has the skills to be successful in any program for the most part. So, you know, I'm looking for the communication, the judgment and reasoning skills, the soft skills, and the hard skills are good, but you can train somebody in the hard skills. And so it's more important for me to find the quality staff, get them on board early, or pass them off to a different department, but process those applications. And that just gets us so far ahead and has these huge trickle down benefits. So that's a huge timeline. I want to move that forward a lot. Itineraries, I want to jump on that really quick. Like I said, at the end of the summer is when you need to capture that feedback and put it into place. Maybe keep your high quality logistics staff on for an extra week just to go back and evaluate all the customer feedback forms and pencil in some draft changes to the itineraries we have in place. And then yeah, continuing with the itineraries, September is when you get a sense for any major changes to camps. Are you going to rest camps, or your land use partners using the Valle Vidal, or whatever the case may be. But having the itineraries more or less drafted, maybe you know, really sometime in October, and then using November to make any tweaks or things like that, but then passing that off to your colleagues early so they have plenty of time to work in their areas of the itineraries. And that's such a critical document for our customers, our brand, and then using it strategically. I mean, that's a document that you use to solve your problems, and that can be very damaging if done poorly. And so using it strategically, but moving that timeline up early, once again, is just really important. And then yeah, exploring. I call it, one example I call it with the itineraries is the $50,000 idea. So when I was there back in September 2019, I submitted a proposal how we can adjust itineraries and immediately save $50,000. And there's a lot of other benefits to it as well. And it didn't get any traction at the time, but it's worth looking at again. And I can tell you that from experience. So I'd really like to bring that up and consider that with a small team, and look at that $50,000 idea with the itinerary. So moving timeline earlier, also on the budgeting and programming supply needs forecast. So general year to year, a lot of your program supplies don't change, your crew loads don't change, especially, I mean, you know your numbers at the end of the summer for the next summer. You know what your participant numbers are, so you can at least get a sense and do some initial budgeting for what some of your basic program needs are going to be for the next year. And so you can budget in at the end of the summer, maybe even use your backcountry warehouse purchaser staff member to go ahead and just tentatively, not place orders, but tentatively, I guess, place orders that you can modify and then get the PPRF for things like climbing rope. I mean, you know pretty much what your climbing rope needs are going to be for the next summer. So there's no reason why you can't do that at the end of the previous summer. And then if you got extra money in the budget come December and they say, hey, we need to spend some money here, you got those ready to go. And then you tweak it as itinerary selection happens and things like that. But getting your initial budget and program supply needs forecast done, it's hard, but at the end of the summer is the time to do it for the next year, because you'll forget stuff. Moving the timeline up on all that, that's important. Okay, in the off season, just community engagement. I know when I was there, the Moreno Valley Trekkers, I saw an opportunity there. These are our neighbors. These are our promoters in the various communities around Philmont. And anytime that there's all these questions or uncertainties about what's happening on the ranch, that's, you know, the drama in the local neighborhoods. And so the Moreno Valley hikers, let's bring them to Philmont. Let's go on a fall hike. It improves your neighbor relations, and then they go out, they have a good time. They go back home and they tell all their friends about the wonderful experience and the things that are happening out there. And you never know. I mean, we got some wealthy neighbors, and so you never know where your next $1 million is going to come from. And so engaging in those neighbors. But Moreno Valley Trekkers is one way that I engaged in the neighbors previously, and I would certainly keep doing that as we move forward. Just continuing to cultivate donors and recapitalization ideas. That would be a growth area for me. It's something I've always been interested in. And at Maine High Adventure, I really started doing this. It was really important for us. And so I got my first big donation. I got a $100,000 donation recently, and that was really exciting to get us some new vehicles. And so I'm really excited to explore that, but in the off season, continuing to prospect for new donors and cultivate them, and then look at how we're going to recapitalize in the future. Second season programming, that was a wonderful lemonade stand for me in my last role there. And so I want to continue to have a hand in the second season programming. I have a lot of ideas that have merit, and I'd like to at least bring to a brainstorm session for the people that are in charge of those second season programs. But also in my role with the backcountry, knowing how the backcountry can best serve a variety of programs in the off season. We have a lot of stakeholders in the off season between hunts and PTC and special events. And so there's a lot of logistics happening, making sure that we're not overlapping each other's programs, and genuinely trying to use our entire backcountry in the off season, and then preparing the backcountry for those people, our facilities, and any program needs and things like that. So that's second season programming. And then just general stuff, you know, just continuing to build, to strengthen old relationships, rekindle ones that have maybe quieted off, and then develop new relationships. With the ranch committee, establishing rapport with the ranch committee, it's important that they know who you are and that you engage them to help you out. That's what they're there for. They're there to help you. And so continuing communication with them, you know, regularly, And that way they're involved and maybe cultivating some new members. At Main High Adventure, we got some young new members to our committee, and it's made a huge impact, and we've increased diversity. Our land use partners, so once again, they're essential. You know, with 20,000 people on the ranch, it's likely that you might make one of your employees or participants might make a mistake, or you need to cross somebody's land for an emergency reason. Anyway, having that rapport with our land use, even if there's a, you know, even if they're not friendly, at least having a professional rapport with them. So having the communication rapport with them, the Forest Service, for example, you get turnover in the Forest Service. So you want to make sure and get to know those people as well. All right, so that kind of just briefly describes the first 30 days, the first 90 days, and then beyond the next 12 months for how I see this position and my role in it being developed. So once again, thanks for bearing with me, and I really look forward to getting started. I look forward to getting started. Thank you.